Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm your host, Sheila Slick, and today my special guest is Tom Fox. Tom is the #1 voice of compliance, having founded the only podcast network in compliance, the award-winning Compliance Podcast Network. It currently has over 60 podcasts. Tom has won 28 awards, maybe even more, for podcast hosting and producing. And he has been honored with awards for podcast series as diverse as Looking Back on 9/11, Understanding Lyme Disease, and Trial of the Century, the Enron Trial. He is also the co-founder of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Sheila, I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Well, thank you for joining me. So the word compliance means adherence to laws, to guidelines, standards, and ethical principles that can apply to a company or an organization. It's a very serious word. And if I had a compliance department, I would probably view it as like the department of no, right? It just goes hand in hand with the word permission, all rules, all restrictions. So what was the pivotal moment when you realized compliance could not just be a topic, but a vehicle for podcasts?
Well, it was really a natural extension of my marketing efforts. In 2010, I had retired or my job went away because my company was sold. And I went off on this great adventure of racing bicycles for a year until on a training ride, I got taken out by a Hummer. That ended my cycling career. And so after convalescing a few months, when I had enough energy to get on my walker and toddle into my office at home, I decided I wanted to work in the compliance arena. I'd done that in my prior job. And so the only thing I had on my hands was time. So I started exploring social media, and I'd always written a lot. I'm a lawyer by professional background. So I started blogging. Well, the podcast was simply a natural extension of blogging. It was just blogging, but verbally. So I started podcasting in 2012. And in 2017, I got the idea that there should be a network dedicated to podcasts in the compliance space. So I went around to there were 3 trade organizations in compliance. So I went around to them and said, look, let's form a joint venture. We'll create a podcast network, and we will put all of our assets in the podcast format in the network. It will not take away from anything you're doing. It will not supplement, or rather replace anything you're doing. It will simply supplement what you're already doing. And I could get zero interest. The first question was, what's a podcast? And then the second was, oh, we're not interested. So I just said, bleep it, I'll do it myself. So I did.
Man, it's been a decade. And in that decade, you've been called the #1 voice of compliance. That title represents both expertise and influence. But even with that, I know that every leader faces moments of doubt or obstacles that'll test your commitment. Now, after hearing your story at the beginning, obviously you have mastered these comebacks because that was a serious injury that you described previously. Strong man. So can you take us back to a time when building the Compliance Podcast Network felt like that uphill battle when you got those no's? What kept you going?
So in 2017, the magic number to get advertising dollars was 30,000 downloads a month. And I knew I was never going to have a compliance podcast that got 30,000 downloads a month, but I might have 10 podcasts that got 3,000 downloads a month. So my goal was to get as many podcasts on the network as I could. But I had to beg, borrow, plead, pay, bribe, do lots of different things to get people to come on my podcast. I even made my daughter do a podcast. And so I did that for a couple of years. And in 2019, I realized or I decided that I either had to fully commit to podcasting as a business or I had to move it back to hobby status. So I quit practicing law, bought all the cool toys that you see, built this huge network. And I mean, huge network, huge infrastructure. And at the end of the year, I'd made about $10,000. And I thought, well, that was an interesting experiment. Guess I'll have to go back to practicing law. And towards the end of that year, I got pretty depressed because nothing seemed to be working. And a person you'll meet at Podfest, the founder of Podfest Expo, is a guy named Chris Krimitos. And I remember I was at another podcast conference and I was so depressed I left early. And he calls me Tommy. He and my mother are the only people that call me Tommy. He put his arm around me. He said, "Tommy, you just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to work out." And so what happened was I went back to practicing law in 2020. And as we all know, the country shut down about March 15th. So all legal work ended and we tried to figure out what was going to happen. Well, on about May 15th of that year, literally every product provider in the compliance space called me with the same question, which was, how long to get access to your network? Because even by then I had the largest social media presence in compliance. So I have a huge social media network. And I had a very anomalous situation of people with money to spend and nowhere to spend it. Because back then in the compliance realm, almost all marketing was done in person. Conferences, trade shows, breakfast roundtables, dinners, all of those sorts of things that we used to do in business. And of course, none of us could do that because the country was shut down. So my little world just blew up. And I went from 120,000 downloads across the network in May of 2020 to 250,000 in August. And my income blew up. And so what I've tried to do really since then is just consolidate the growth, the explosion of growth I had. And I don't know if I could have built a network out while trying to input all of these new customers, but I don't have to answer that question because all of that work I'd done in 2019, it was just when they called me and I said I had the same answer to every question of how long it took because it was the same 24 hours because it was just a plug and play or a drop and drag and they were ready to go. And so I had a platform where people could get their marketing message out that no one else had. And so since that time, like I said, I've just tried to consolidate the growth I had and expand on that.
And it is your full-time business. You're not practicing law.
Right.
Oh, so it all worked out beautifully.
It did.
So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur or a podcaster who's at a crossroad where they have achieved success in one venture, for example, your law firm, and deciding whether to replicate the model or try something entirely new? How do you know when it's time to expand that vision?
Well, let me go back to the injury I had and then changing sort of focus in 2010. I'd always known that when the universe closes one door, it opens another. But what I didn't realize till I had that injury is you have to have the courage to walk through that door. So if you're down, if you think things aren't going well, if you think opportunities closed off, just look around. The universe is going to open another door for you. But you have to have the courage to walk through that door. And once you walk through that door, then opportunities are going to open up for you. So the first thing is find the door, walk through it. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And my journey certainly was not easy those first couple of years. And I was very depressed in 2019 when I didn't seem to be getting any traction. But what happened to me was when preparation meets opportunity, luck occurs. So the pandemic hits, people needed a place to market, and I had it. And whether you want to call that luck or whether you want to call it I was ready to go, doesn't really matter. So be ready when the opportunity strikes. And when that opportunity strikes, just grab it. And literally, what I've tried to do since then is first year I tried to just ride the tiger because it was crazy. But then consolidate that growth and bring a value to your customers that they can't get internally or in-house, or do it at a method that or cost that's below other things they can do. So product providers in the compliance space, they certainly want to come on the podcast, but they also need marketing material. So I create 15 pieces of social media marketing content per podcast. So I can give them the content they can then use to market their products, goods, and services in social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., Instagram. Not a TikTok guy, but maybe you can do it on TikTok. So it's really a package of assets that every product provider in the compliance space wants and needs.
So, what is your next milestone?
Well, my next milestone is actually in a very different direction. I live in part of Texas, the part of Texas that sustained a major flood on July 4th. They killed 140 people, and I'm writing a book about that flood.
Mystic, like Camp Mystic flood?
Just like
Oh, that was an eye opener. It just, for someone that doesn't understand until they see how quickly the water can rise, it
so I
blew
know
my
you're from
mind.
Florida, so I know you know about hurricanes, and I'm from the Gulf Coast, so I knew about hurricanes. I'd lived through hurricanes in Houston, lived through Harvey, and certainly knew what flooding was about, but I had no appreciation of a flash flood and the power of not simply the rise in height, but the velocity and speed of water and what that can do to people, to cars, to structures, all of that. So you're right. It's been a huge learning experience. And that comes from somebody who thought he knew what flooding was about.
So not only do I live in Florida and I know hurricanes, I can see the river, the intercoastal, from my office right here. And when I saw what you just described, I too was like, wait a minute, this is completely different than just getting flooded, right? The force that came with and the way it would just take everything. So, what's your goal with the book?
Actually, I decided to write the book to help work through all the grief I was feeling. And it really struck me very deeply. And it actually bothered me more than 9/11 did, which I didn't think anything could bother me more than 9/11. But I knew, I tell people it's a big county, but it's a small town. Everybody knew somebody who died. I had people on my podcast who died. So it was very personal to me, and it's allowing me to work through that grief and tell the story of not only honoring those who did unfortunately pass away, but the resilience of the community and how it's now trying to dig its way out and actually make a comeback from this terrible tragedy.
Well, I look forward to staying in touch and hearing about the book once it's published. Maybe we can have you come back and give us more tidbits and where we could buy it and so forth. I'd love to read it.
Looking forward to it.
And I look forward to meeting you in person at Podfest. It's an event for podcasters and authors, I believe both. And with my new project, Pod to Book AI, we are actually sponsoring it. And so I'm very excited to meet you in person and meet other people that are also in this space. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership.